Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome into the Fantasy Roundup. I'm your host, Spencer the Guru Urquhart. Right alongside me is Gabe Henderson. We've got an action-packed show planned for y'all. I know Gabe's ready. You ready, man?
Yeah, back in my office, as I promised.
Right. Yeah, Gabe back in his office, touched back down from vacation. Getting those vacations over with here. It's now the calendar's flipped. It's on the August. So, ready to see what this month has to offer. And I know for us fantasy football enthusiasts, it offers a lot because there's plenty of speculation to begin with drafts coming up. Those redrafts for sure. I know dynasty season's over. It's redraft season, man. So
Yes, it is. I'm really excited. Got mine coming up in a few weeks with all my buds and looking forward to it.
yes, indeed. So before we really get the show going, we'd like to shout out our sponsor, Caesars Sportsbook. Make sure to head on over to Caesars to get a risk-free first bet offer if you haven't already for those that are interested. And appreciate everyone that tuned in. I haven't got any comments yet, but for those that do want to comment and have questions for us, feel free to drop them in now or later, whenever you feel like doing so. We've got a stacked show today. We've got another day of Saints training camp. Probably won't have too much Saints talk, but my rant, for those that want some Saints talk, stay till the end, because my rant has to do with one of New Orleans' favorite Saints, Taysom Hill. So keep an eye out for that. But we just saying, also the MLB trade deadline, we're keeping an eye on it. As we see, we got Eduardo Rodriguez just nixed trade to the Dodgers because of his no trade clause. Now that's an interesting development. That is crazy.
And I don't know if you saw earlier, we posted obviously an MLB trade deadline meme because I think it's the most exciting on Bet.Nola's Instagram.
Yeah, y'all go follow.
Follow us over there. But my prediction under it was Verlander to the Astros. Not to jump the gun on your headline, Spencer, but here's that. So our admin asked for another bold prediction. Mine was Dylan Cease to the Dodgers. So we'll see. We got 57 minutes left. That's my bold prediction. The Eduardo Rodriguez means, that's in play. The Dodgers love a splash move, and they're obviously looking for starting pitching. They've got the prospects to do it. Let's see if I can be the guru today.
Might have to be. Well, let's see. Let's get to our headlines here. We've got some updates here. Astros acquired Justin Verlander from the Mets. Mets having the fire sale, and Verlander part of it. Max Scherzer was traded earlier over the weekend, and now Verlander acquired by the Astros. A big move, to say the least. Jonathan Taylor requested trade from the Colts, and as soon as he did, karma for Jim Irsay, where it had been ranting about him yesterday about how goofy he is. He's not wanting to pay Jonathan Taylor. And now the backup to Jonathan Taylor, Zach Moss, is injured, broken arm, likely to miss at least 6 weeks. His week 1 status very much in doubt. Could this mean the Colts pay Jonathan Taylor now? I wouldn't bet on it, but it definitely increases the chances of them doing so because they have nothing in their backfield at the moment. Bo Bichette injured his knee. Doesn't appear to be super serious, but probably going to miss some time. And as a result, the Blue Jays acquired Paul DeJong from my St. Louis Cardinals, who, like the Mets, are not living up to expectations and selling off these veteran assets that just simply aren't doing them any good at this point. And then the Broncos wide receiver Tim Patrick, he had been standing out in camp. It was looking like a potential favorite of Sean Payton. Season-ending Achilles injury. He is done yet again. 2nd year in a row he suffered a season-ending injury. And good afternoon to you too, Jerry. Thanks for tuning in. But, yeah, tough break for Tim Patrick, man. He had to rehab last year, torn ACL, I believe, and now a torn Achilles. Double whammy, arguably the 2 worst injuries in sports, those lower leg injuries, and just, man, it just sucks. I mean, the rookie Marvin Mims probably more involved there in Denver, and maybe even Marquez Callaway, Adam Troutman. Someone's going to have to step up over there because Sean Payton, he's going to have his hands full. He's talking down on Aaron Rodgers and the Jets, but the fact is the Jets have weapons. Denver's weapons looking pretty suspect.
Yeah, the 2 people I feel really bad for in training camp are obviously Tim Patrick with the Broncos. I mean, the guy can't catch a break. And the shame is he's talented. And then, another talented guy in Detroit, Shane Zylstra, who I think tore his ACL. So he's out for the year. So it's, these early injuries always stink, not just as fantasy players, but you feel bad for these guys too. These really talented young guys.
Yep. And we got it. Oh man, Astros are like the new Yankees taking shots.
Evil Empire. I'm here for it. I'll embrace it.
I mean, all they got was Verlander, and I mean Verlander's like 40 years old. It's not like they're. I could see that if they were getting, let's say, Nolan Arenado or something. But I mean, Verlander, that was a big move for sure. But we'll talk more baseball later. The main theme of the show here is the running back targets and the voids, which we'll get to here. And I had to throw in. I made a pivot on my list, Gabe. I had Tony Pollard as my avoid, which I still agree that Tony Pollard is an avoid, but I feel like his ADP is kind of settled around the mid to late second round. So with that in mind, I had to put Jonathan Taylor on here because of the uncertainty surrounding him right now. And he's still going in the first round of a lot of drafts, but with that uncertainty, to me, you just can't take him there right now because we don't know where he's going to play next year, or even if he's going to play next year. He might be so mad at Irsay and the Colts that he might sit out, and they don't really have a viable replacement for him. So I think he's got leverage there. He's definitely got leverage. So even if he does end up playing eventually, if they start off 0-4 and they're like, all right, we'll pay you, it's like at that point their season's lost. And will he even be that motivated? It's just it's so cloudy right now. So definitely think Taylor, if they can get it resolved, hopefully with a trade, hopefully he gets traded somewhere like Miami. That would be, that would be great for Miami. I'm already high on Miami. And exactly, thanks for tuning in, Mad King. Taylor got to get the hell out of Indy. You're not lying, bro. He's going to try.
Get the hell out of Indy.
Yeah, he's not a free agent, though. He's still got his last year of his rookie contract. So he's probably going to try to force their hand. There's no doubt about it. And there's just too much uncertainty right now, so to me, to justify taking him in the first. But if he can get out of there and in a good, in a good spot, I might change my mind. But for now, I just can't justify taking him there. As much as I don't like Tony Pollard this year, because I don't think he's going to be able to hold up over the full season. Plus Zeke, sounds like Zeke's going back to Dallas. It's not official yet, but Jerry, I'm sure they're kicking the tires over there. Jerry Jones over there. They're trying to bring Zeke back probably, but it's not official. So Pollard in the second, I can maybe see, but JT in the first, I'm not touching that right now.
Yeah, no, neither am I. With any uncertainty, last year it was, and I love to point this out all the time with DeAndre Hopkins, great football player, but if there's no guarantee he's going to play. Yeah. And you know what? I do kind of agree with that, although Dame's obviously a lot older and he's needed to be added to a championship team now. Jonathan Taylor can help elevate a team to a championship team now, and he doesn't necessarily need to go into a winning situation right away. You could put him in Miami where they might not win the Super Bowl this year, but they'd be contenders for years to come if they give him a bag.
Right. Yeah, and it's one of these things. I could do a whole rant on this, and I'm glad you brought up Damian Lillard because it's just frustrating to see these superstar players have to be stuck on these terrible teams. It's like, man, y'all are just like, y'all have had time to build around him. JT's been in the league now. This will be entering his fourth year. The Colts have just gotten progressively worse with him. Damian Lillard, that's an even worse situation. He's been with the Trailblazers a decade pretty much. I think maybe over a decade now at this point. Always a good citizen, never requested a trade. And now that he finally does, because I can see why he did, they drafted his replacement there in Scoot Henderson. And now that he requested a trade, everyone acts like he's a bad guy because he requested a trade. I know it was kind of a tough request to just one team, but I feel like if he worked with it, maybe he might be open to other stuff. I think he just wanted to set the bar at that point, to where to try to ensure that the Trailblazers didn't mess him over again, because it's just the trust is severed. You draft a young guy at third overall that plays the same position as you. I know it's his era positionless basketball, but let's be real. I don't think Damian Lillard and Scoot Henderson are going to two true point guards like that just aren't really going to gel together. Yeah. So it just pisses me off the way these teams do. I'm just sick and tired of it. I mean, they paying these. Oh, I mean, they got these owners of freaking millionaires, these GMs that they don't know what they're doing because the owner's too incompetent to hire the right people. And it's a trickle down effect. And you've got these great athletes putting their freaking bodies on the line week after week or game after game. NBA's case even more as far as football, each game is probably more of a toll. But to wrap up this little tangent here, I'm just sick of it. These teams have got to start, treating these players better. And if they're into a rebuild, stop playing hardball with these guys. If you're in a rebuild, move on from you guys, restock with young guys that are hungry to play, that'll be willing to put up with a rebuild. A guy like Damian Lillard should not be having to put up with a freaking rebuild. He's paid his dues, man. Come on.
Yeah, and that actually perfectly segues into my avoid, which is another great running back, Derrick Henry, who's been stuck on a terrible team for a while. The Titans obviously haven't been all that bad for a while, but he's been a huge reason for their success, and now he's pushing 30, and they're just getting a lot worse. So the reason I have Derrick Henry on here isn't because I think he's going to fall off personally, although running backs of his nature don't tend to have long shelf lives. The reason I have him on here is just because of the uncertainty around his future. There's a lot of talk of him being traded, although the Titans have held on to him now. And honestly, we just don't know what the Titans are going to do this year. They brought in DeAndre Hopkins, so maybe they're not going to blow it all up like we expected. But I'm not looking to Derrick Henry because teams, when they game plan for the Titans, they're only going to game plan for stopping the run. Because if you stop the run, what are you going to do? Lean on Ryan Tannehill to win you games in 2023, 2024? Absolutely not. So,
right.
Yeah, I don't like Derrick Henry. Even in the early second, I'm staying away and I'm going for a younger guy on a better team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think Henry at this point, his ADP is getting more and more reasonable.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times I see guys like Tony Pollard go up over him, and then I was like, well, give me Derrick Henry late second. That's a value. It's all about value. But to me, at this price, he might be a little pricey. So I see your point. I'll have to disagree slightly, though, in that I think he'll still be productive even with them keying in on him. Because with Hopkins and Burks.
But
mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, I get it. Yeah, just a little overpriced. And for me, though, the thing that concerns me the most with him is his age more so than – I know the team's not the best, but I feel like it could be worse. I mean, it could be the Colts. The Titans aren't great, but at least they're not the Colts. At least they've got a good coach and competent players, surrounding Henry. But his age, I mean, he's old and has a lot of mileage on him. He's defied – logic so far. He's been kind of like Marshawn Lynch. I remember everyone would be like, oh, Marshawn Lynch, he's just the way he runs, his age, he's going to fall off. But he had 2 or 3 years after that that were still productive. So for Dynasty, yeah, obviously you don't want to have Henry as your top player, but he's still in redraft a core piece for me. So at that price, a little high, second round, I'll take the chance. Speaking of second round, a player that to me is a steal in the second round right here. Nick Chubb, y'all. Nick Chubb. Kareem Hunt, I'm to the point now, I'm not worried about Kareem Hunt. Even if he does come back, that does not going to matter. He's not a factor anymore. If they haven't signed him by now, they don't value him enough to have signed him already. He's not going back. Even if he does, it'll be in a very reduced role. So with that in mind, Nick Chubb to me is an absolute steal in round 2. To me, should be a first-round pick because I think he'll be much more involved as a receiver this year. Because Jerome Ford, well, I think he's a decent late-round flyer and a good handcuff for Chubb. He didn't do anything last year as a rookie to where he'll be asked to do more, but he's not going to do as much as Kareem Hunt did as far as a receiver. So Nick Chubb and Matt King's in agreement, an underrated beast. I think this is the year he truly breaks out, and he might be like the next Derrick Henry as far as a guy who's going to lead the league in rushing, could lead the league in rushing touchdowns. And if he's catching more passes, he could challenge Christian McCaffrey and Austin Eckler for number 1 overall running back.
Put it this way: if he played somewhere other than Cleveland, people would be calling him the best running back in the NFL. I know he's not obviously as well rounded for PPR leagues as guys like McCaffrey and Eckler, like you just mentioned, but with the amount of work that he's going to get this year with no Kareem Hunt there, at least for right now, this is a steal. And I mean, just if you look at Henry and Chubb and their values right now, they're one pick apart. There is so much more value in a guy like Chubb than there is Henry here. So I absolutely love Nick Chubb in the early second round.
For sure. And sell me on Saquon, man. I mean, I like Saquon, but 109 seems, I don't want to say bust, but like it's, I don't see a whole lot of value there. But yeah, let me, and Matt King's with you. He says Saquon's the best, with the best bust. So, okay, maybe he's dissing on Saquon. But go ahead, make your case, Gabe. Why do you like Saquon this year?
I mean,
no, best RB. He likes Saquon.
Yeah, no, I mean, I really like Saquon as well. He's got the pass catching ability of the other guys, although you haven't seen it at a high volume because of injuries or because of the incompetent guys that were running the Giants. But now that Brian Daboll's in the building, he's gotten a year under his belt. I'm really high on anything Giants offense this year, except maybe some of the receivers, obviously. That's an area that's needed refined for years. But Saquon Barkley's athleticism, his playmaking ability mixed with Brian Daboll's brilliant offensive mind. And Daniel Jones has been able to alleviate some of the pressure on his back. So I really like the upside of Saquon Barkley. And even then, his floor is as high as some guys' ceilings in terms of early running backs, because Saquon Barkley does have that elite talent that a McCaffrey or an Eckler has. And although we haven't seen it, I think you have some of that value there at the end of the first.
Yeah, he's got that elite ability for sure. And you don't have to pay quite as high of a price as you do CMC and Austin Eckler. So I see your point. If he goes there, like it depends on who else falls. Like if Bijan Robinson's there, I'll probably go Bijan. But if those three are going, Bijan, Eckler, and C-Mac, give me Saquon. He's my number 4 overall running back. So not bad. Not a bad option. Let's move on to mid-rounds here, the mid-round running back targets. I will go with the targets. We started with the avoids last time. I'll start with the targets here, keep the positivity going. David Montgomery. Going with David Montgomery. I think he's going to be even better version of Jamal Williams over there in Detroit. Might not get quite as many touchdowns, but I think he'll get more yards and more receptions. Everyone's talking Jahmyr Gibbs. Well, guess what, y'all? Jahmyr Gibbs is a rookie, and the Lions are a team that's trying to win now. He'll have a role, but I don't think it'll be quite as big as a lot of people are thinking. I think it's going to be DeAndre Swift 2.0, and that fantasy owners go gaga over this guy because of the receptions ability. And in PPR leagues, you got to try to chase receptions. But David Montgomery can catch here and there. Jahmyr's going to catch more, but Monty's going to still be the early downs guy. He's going to see. I think he gets more yards from scrimmage than Jahmyr Gibbs and more touchdowns. And you're getting him way later. Gibbs going 3rd, 4th round. Montgomery, you get here in the end of the 7th. So much value. I don't get it. I do get it. Gibbs has more upside, but can't be undisciplined on draft day. You got to go with guys that are safe. You can't just always swing for the fences. And Montgomery is a perfect example of a running back that you can get in this range. That's normally what they call the RB dead zone, that has a chance to not only be a solid play right here, but has a chance to do more. I feel like he's got a floor and a little bit of upside to go with it. So he's definitely someone I'll be targeting this in August.
Yeah, for sure. If David Montgomery has the role that you believe he does, there's excellent value in the 7th round here. I mean, we're talking about a guy who has been misused by the Bears for a few years, in my opinion. Obviously, he's struggled with some injuries here and there, and that's why, we'll talk about someone like Khalil Herbert here in a little bit under my avoids, just because the Bears and how they use their running backs. But David Montgomery is a serious talent. I equate him to a guy like a Miles Sanders. He is that workhorse, and he's capable of getting in the end zone, even though teams haven't used him that way. So yeah, I really like David Montgomery if he does have that increased early down role. that you're alluding to.
Right, which I think he will because it's the same system as last year. And I guess I'll go with my avoid too here and talk about DeAndre Swift, who is a former Lion now at the Eagles, who I think is going to be a bust yet again because he's just not a guy that excels on early downs. And a team like the Eagles, they're going to pound the rock early and often with that offensive line. And the guys they're gonna use for that are Rashad Penny and Boston Scott, two guys that no one's talking about. And granted, I'm not recommending those guys either. The Eagles' backfield's one I'm completely staying away from because Jalen Hurts is going to get all the goal line work. So I'm not touching any Eagles backs. But the only one with any sort of ADP tied to him is DeAndre Swift. So I don't want any part of it. Stay away. They don't throw to their backs much. Not enough to justify his price. And he's not going to get enough early down work or touchdowns to make up for it. So to me, you're just, I hate to say you're wasting a pick, but considering you can get Monty around later and your guy gave Isaiah Pacheco in the same round, it's a wasted pick.
Yeah, for sure. Swift is really flashy as a player, but there's a reason he wasn't used as much because he's still a little bit raw, and there are just so many backs in the Eagles' backfield. I mean,
Penny Gainwell too.
Gainwell, Scott, Penny. Given guys like Rashad Penny haven't been able to stay healthy, Philly loves their workhorse running backs, and DeAndre Swift just isn't that right now. And as you mentioned, with Jalen Hurts taking away all the red zone carries, I just don't see why you would reach on a guy like Swift in the 6th round.
Yeah, the path just isn't there. And speaking of path being there, man, Isaiah Pacheco, I know he's kind of banged up right now, but assuming Clyde Edwards-Helaire doesn't rise from the dead, which I don't see that happening, he's had his chances and hadn't taken them. So I feel like Pacheco is good, but sell me on why the 6th round's a good spot for him.
Well, I mean, I know, Spencer, you love to talk about and point out the fact that Andy Reid doesn't like using rookies. And I know he kind of had to use Pacheco last year with Edwards-Helaire injured. But we saw from Isaiah Pacheco last year everything that Clyde Edwards-Helaire was thought to be in the Chiefs offense. I mean, this is a dude who almost had 1,000 yards from scrimmage last year as a rookie when he wasn't given as many carries as he probably should have. Mm-hmm. So if he can work his way back to being fully healthy before the season starts, I think Isaiah Pacheco's got a lot of breakout potential. And if you can get him in the middle rounds, I think that's a steal, considering the fact that he's got a lot of upside in that backfield. Obviously, the pass catching ability is a little up in the air because you've got McKinnon there, who in the playoffs especially took away those touches. But I think Pacheco is still a decent pass catcher. And if Andy Reid kind of leans on him more now that he's a second-year player, there's excellent value, especially over a guy like Swift later in the 6th round.
Right. Yeah, I can get on board with that. And avoids, though, you got Khalil Herbert, I see, who, to me, his ADP is pretty good. I know the Bears' backfield's crowded, but I guess you just don't want any part of that.
No, I don't want. I mean, it's almost a similar situation as you get in Philly. There's too many cooks in the kitchen, and their quarterback has got excellent rushing ability, and I think Fields will take away those red zone carries as well. Even though he didn't tend to get a ton last year, we saw him more picking up yardage in the middle of the field. But I'm just, Khalil Herbert has gotten ample opportunities to take away that number one spot from guys like David Montgomery in the past, and he's just never been able to do so. So I don't know why we're trusting him now, especially with a workhorse like Dante Foreman now there, able to take those carries away from him. I just see him splitting duties again, and I don't like Khalil Herbert's potential, given the fact that Fields is going to probably run the same amount, if not more, and the fact that they added another Montgomery-esque player in Foreman.
Yeah, that's a good point, man. I mean, I was thinking Herbert would be someone I could get later, but, a 9th round, a little steep, but should be the starter over there. I might have a few shares, but definitely not someone that I'm going to be counting on as a starter. One as a bench. You know, if you get him on your bench, might not be bad. But as a starter, don't chase that just because he's listed as the Bears starting running back. Guys like Foreman and the rookie Roschon Johnson will be involved, not to mention Justin Fields. So let's move on to late round targets here. I guess we'll just start with avoids, get the avoids over. We dove deep here, Gabe. We went way past like what a lot of leagues draft, but I know a lot of y'all listening are in deep leagues, deep competitive leagues. So they got to know who to get late. A lot of times these guys can be difference makers. Stash them on your bench and could pan out. But someone I'm not stashing on my bench, Michael Carter. Just feel like there are too many cooks in the kitchen, especially if they bring in the cook, Dalvin Cook. Yeah, assuming they bring him in like it's rumored, then someone's going to have to go. It's too crowded there. Zonovan Bam Knight appears to have passed Carter up, and they have the rookie there from Pitt, Israel. They're still working on how to say his last name. It's with an A, really long. But they're going to keep him and Bam Knight. They're going to keep, obviously, Breece Hall, who's coming off injury, but should be ready for week 1. And if they bring in Dalvin, that's 4 running backs. No room for Michael Carter. So even if he somehow makes the roster, I still don't like him, though, because he had his chance last year to take over the backfield and Breece Hall went down, and he simply didn't. Bam Knight got more work, and Carter he's just not a lead guy. He was the compliment to Javonte Williams in college. He's still a compliment to this day, and he doesn't catch enough to be a fantasy asset. So it's not worth worrying about him on draft day.
Yeah, a few years ago, I really liked the outlook of Carter, but since Breece Hall's emerged and since those other guys have kind of seemingly passed him up, it's one of those names that you see in the late rounds. You're like, oh, I remember him. He's a young guy with upside. Just don't touch it.
Right. Yeah. So you got an old guy here, Latavius Murray, who might make the roster now that Nyheim Hines is hurt, but I guess you don't see him doing enough to be worth a pick.
No, I like to stay away from Bills running backs as it is. Maybe they'll run the ball more now that their receiving core is kind of thinned out. But even then, I just, in those late rounds, especially in these deep leagues, you're just scrolling through to see if you recognize some of these guys. And some people will see Latavius Murray. And even though he's a name don't bite. Just take a rookie, even if that rookie might not even make the roster. Odds are these guys are going to be in the depths of your bench. You're probably going to cut him week 1 or 2 anyways. So just take a young guy and avoid Latavius Murray, even though he's a name that we all know and some of us love. Stay away from the Bills running backs as a whole, I would say, but especially Latavius Murray. Don't fall for that old trick.
Yeah, like Mark Ingram last year. Anyone that took Mark Ingram got burned. And I see, speaking of rookies, you got Chase Brown, the Bengals rookie, who I was higher on. I still kind of like him, but Joe Mixon is now set in stone as a starter. But we did have some news today. Travion Williams, the guy competing with Brown, got carted off. So it looks like Brown's going to be the clear number 2 over there.
Yeah, we've heard about Travion Williams coming up, and I love, as a guy from Houston, love to show support to a local guy like Travion Williams. But Chase Brown, I like the aspect or the prospect of him, even though the Bengals did lock down Mixon, just because the Bengals have always been that team to kind of utilize that second back. Obviously, we've seen some guys in the past pop up in big moments for them, whether it be through injury or just the fact that Mixon can kind of rub people the wrong way, I guess. So I just like the prospect of Chase Brown. I think he's a good young back, and I think that the Bengals involve other running backs enough to take a flyer on him in late rounds in deep leagues like 20-round leagues, 24-round leagues. I like Chase Brown. He's a young guy that you take over a guy, say, like Latavius Murray.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Yeah, I think people are starting to wake up now. ADP's creeping up. He'll probably be I would think he'll definitely be going in the first 16 rounds by the time this is, things really get ramped up. And like another guy that I see climbing up this board a lot, Ty Chandler with the Vikings, because I think he's the guy that ends up the number 2 over there. Haven't had any reports on him yet. It's been real quiet over there, but just using context clues and college film and stats, he was pretty solid at North Carolina, following Javonte Williams. And It's his second year in the league, didn't do anything as a rookie, but he was on the roster, stuck around where I think they value him as a potential asset. And Alexander Madison, as of now, is going to be the 3-down back, but he's never really done that before in his career. It's always been Dalvin Cook. So I'm thinking Ty Chandler's the number 2. Dwayne McBride's another rookie over there, but I think with him being a true rookie and Ty Chandler was drafted a little bit higher, I think he was a 5th or 6th rounder as opposed to McBride being a 7th rounder. So I'll take a chance on Ty Chandler in hopes that he can get some work sprinkled in here and there behind Madison. And then if Madison goes down, I think he'll be the workhorse in what's still going to be a strong offense in Minnesota.
Yeah, all of that being said, Spencer, I do want to make note of this. I like Dwayne McBride in dynasty leagues. I wouldn't touch him, at least right now, in redraft leagues, unless you're doing huge leagues like 24 rounds, something like that. But yeah, no, Chandler looks more set to be the guy, and Dwayne McBride's maybe the number 3. So there's a lot that would need to happen there for him to see the field early on. But I like both their prospects early on. And I did consider putting Dwayne McBride as my guy, but we're doing redrafts, and I like Chase Brown a lot more because there's a more clear path to get on the field. Same with Ty Chandler, obviously.
Yeah, assuming Chandler holds off McBride, but we'll see. This is all fluid, subject to change, but for now it's looking good for the guys, Chandler and Brown, and not so good for Carter and Murray, but that's our running back analysis. Let us know if you agree or disagree. In the meantime, we'll talk a little more baseball here. MLB trade deadline had some deals go down. Scherzer and Verlander on the move. The 2 Texas teams being very active in that AL West arms race. Rangers got Scherzer and Jordan Montgomery really boosting their rotation. And I knew the Astros were going to do something. I knew they weren't just going to sit on their hands while the Rangers made all these moves. And sure enough, Justin Verlander back in H-Town. I know you're down there, Gabe. How fired up? How's the vibe out there? How's the Verlander reunion?
Yeah, fired up at a Verlander reunion. Some Astros fans are kind of upset. Our farm system is not as deep as it was, and we gave up some top prospects. But the Mets are giving up a lot of money and paying him a lot of money to come here. So obviously Justin Verlander is a guy who one of the biggest things that helped the Astros win the World Series last year was the fact that their starters were able to go deep in games. And, we've seen Framber Valdez, Christian Javier, Hunter Brown. Those guys have struggled a little bit over the last few weeks. And that's had an impact on the bullpen, who's had to pick up more innings. So the Astros obviously went out and got Kendall Graveman back, who's been lights out this year. And they've got Justin Verlander to patch up some of those innings. So, it's an arms race seemingly in the AL West between the Rangers and the Astros now. And now that both teams are hopefully getting back healthy, I know the Astros are, the Rangers maybe a little further away. Their injuries are more recent. We're going to see what this division race holds. Right now, it's half a game. Rangers could be 1.5 up tonight. The Astros could be half a game up, or it could stay the same. You just never know. But obviously, it's an exciting time for both teams here in Texas. And these look like the 2 front runners in the American League. If I had to say, I know we're not making predictions or anything right now, but the Orioles haven't done anything yet at the deadline, and I think they need experience to win anything. And the Rays have just fallen off recently. So the Astros and the Rangers have only gotten stronger and added experience arms, and I like both the moves.
Yeah, Verlander to the Orioles would have been huge. I think that would have put them over the top. But the fact that the Astros prevented them from doing that was big because I feel like the Orioles, like you said, are just a few experienced veterans away from being arguably the best team in the AL. Even without that experience, they're up there right now. They're winning the toughest division in MLB, the AL East. But speaking of the AL East, the Blue Jays and Rays are making moves. So if I'm an Orioles fan, I'm hoping something comes in before the deadline, which is now less than 30 minutes away. So if we get any breaking updates, I'm going to refresh my MLB trade rumors tab here. But in the meantime, Paul DeJong, Cardinals continuing to strip it down to where Paul DeJong now headed to the Blue Jays in case Bo Bichette ends up missing extended time, which is a very important insurance plan. Not that DeJong's Bo Bichette, but he at least gives you something decent there. DeJong's a solid player. He's not a star, but he's solid. He can hold it down there for a few weeks, which is what they need. You need to be able to stay afloat, because if you lose like 5, 6 in a row, you're going to be in last place in that division. So that was an important thing. And in the Rays too, I mean, acquiring Aaron Savali from the Guardians, that was big. Savali's a pitcher that not many people know, but he's a quality starter. He's been a decent arm there for a few years now. And then the Dodgers got Lance Lynn, who they tried to get Eduardo Rodriguez. That didn't work out. But they did get Lance Lynn, who's, I'll be real, he's looking over the hill. So the Dodgers might be in a little trouble. They'll try to maybe convince Eduardo to come, but I don't know. I feel like the AL teams are definitely making more moves to where if it's a team other than the Braves, I think it'll be another year the AL taking the World Series. Just seems like these AL teams are hungrier. They're just more willing to make moves, and they're still waiting for the Cardinals to deal some players. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. The Cardinals are just, we'll have to wait till the offseason for anything significant with the Cardinals. The Cardinals are they're like a dog chasing its tail. They don't know what they're doing. I'll be honest. If they trade Goldschmidt, it wouldn't shock me. If they trade for someone, that wouldn't make sense. It wouldn't shock me. They just don't know what they're doing right now, unfortunately. But at least the White Sox, I mean, I'll give them that. They're just having a fire sale. I mean, I feel like feel better for a team that like knows what they're doing, has a sense of direction. But anyway, that's any bold predictions, Gabe? Anything you think is going to go down here before 5 o'clock? Anything is going to be pretty quiet?
We're talking about the White Sox fire sale. I think the Dodgers are the only team that would give them the return they're looking for someone like Dylan Cease. I've been glancing down at my phone throughout just as we get these. It's been a bunch of minor deals, but the major deals really usually come in like 10 minutes after the deadline. We usually get all of those. I mean, obviously, he's an Astros fan. Memories of Verlander and Greinke. So my bold prediction, as I mentioned at the top of the show, maybe Dylan Cease to the Dodgers.
Oh yeah, Dylan Cease.
They look desperate to make a move for a starter, and Lance Lynn just isn't the big name guy you want to bring in if you want to compete with someone like the Braves. And on that note, I think Luis Robert stays put in Chicago. I don't think anyone is going to be willing to give him the return they're looking for. Maybe the Astros would have, but with the Astros dealing their top 2 outfield prospects, I don't really think they have what it takes. And I don't think anyone else is really going to pay up right now for a guy like Luis Robert. So, right. Yeah, those guys, I could see Eduardo Rodriguez getting dealt. I don't know if anyone will inquire about that now with the Dodgers off the table. So We'll see. Yeah, Cease to the Dodgers is kind of one that I'm looking for in the last 20 minutes of the deadline, but you never know.
Yeah, for sure, man. For sure. So time to rant here before we sign off. Got a Dalvin Cook rant about him still being a free agent.
It's not necessarily him being a free agent. I just think he's doing free agency back asswards. He obviously wants to go to a good team, and he's looking kind of honed in on the AFC East. He's visited with the Jets, and I think he's talking to the Patriots. And, those are the 2 teams that I wouldn't want to go to if I'm Dalvin Cook. Obviously, the Jets are the new hot team on the block with Aaron Rodgers and co there. But, you've got Breece Hall there and Ramondre Stevenson in New England. So why, if I'm Dalvin Cook, why am I not looking at Miami, who's the team he was heavily rumored to early after his release, where you would be the guaranteed starter and you could be the piece to push them over the edge as well. With Mike McDaniel, brilliant offensive mind that he is there. And then even maybe Buffalo, where you would get less money, but get to play with family, and you would be the starting back there as well. So I just think he's doing it backwards in the sense that he's visiting the wrong AFC East teams. I don't really think a move to the Jets makes sense unless he's ring chasing. I don't think it makes sense for the Jets either. And even then, I think Dalvin Cook is lax about the whole thing. But, I mean, training camp started, and, we now see teams kind of starting to game plan for what they want to do this upcoming season. It's not easy to slot a guy in and have him learn a whole offense before the season starts. And I know he's a running back, so it's easier for guys like that. But It doesn't make sense to me what he's doing. He's chasing a bag as he should. He deserves a bag. But I think he should go to a team like Miami and just get that over with. I don't think the Jets or the Patriots are good destinations for him.
Yeah, I definitely agree about the Patriots. That's just, I mean, who wants to go to the Patriots at this point? I mean, it's a disaster over there. Bill Belichick has run that thing into the ground.
Yeah, not only is it a
Offensively,
disaster,
anyway.
but the running back position is the one position that's maybe sealed there.
Yeah.
And because Ramondre Stevenson's a great young back, so I just don't get it.
Right, but yeah, Bills. I mean, to me, the Jets somewhat make sense because Brees Hall's coming off the injury, so I could maybe see that working out. The Dolphins, though, to me, make too much sense because he's a Florida kid, went to Florida State, and they have a clear need at running back. Like he's the missing piece of their puzzle. Yep. So they need to be able to, if I'm a Dolphins fan, I'm really hoping they work that out because, I mean, it just makes too much sense. Plus, you'd be preventing another division rival from getting him. I can see why he wants to stay away from the Bills because it's like, I mean, his brother's there, but other than that, there's not much appeal to go in there because that's a pass first team, and Josh Allen also runs, so he's not going to get the work he wants over there. Where Miami, also pass first team, I just think he'll be more involved there because he'd be the main show in town there for sure.
Yeah, but if you're ring chasing, I think you have a better chance of getting a ring with the Bills than you do with the Jets, personally.
Yeah, well, I don't think he's ring chasing though. I think he wants his bag. He wants the bag. Yeah, I think he would like to be on a contender, but it's like it's like DeAndre Hopkins. Like I think DeAndre Hopkins would have liked to have signed with the Chiefs or the Bills, but they weren't willing to pay him, so he went and got his bag with Tennessee. So. But we'll see how it goes. It'll be interesting to see where Dalvin Cook ends up. Drop your comments on where you see him landing. And my rant here before we sign off, man, it was just something. I didn't really have one for today, but I just started thinking. I was like, you know what? Here's one I could tie in. Kind of give the Saints fans something to some food for thought because it isn't anything to do with Saints fans. This is just fantasy players in general. I'm just so sick of it. Every year they complain about Taysom Hill. They need to quit complaining about him, in my opinion, because he puts up numbers. He puts up numbers now year after year to where if you want his stats, draft him. Just draft him late. He's basically free in drafts. He's tight end eligible. Tight end position's a load of crap anyways once you get past the first 5 or 6 options. Like, just take a chance on him. If you don't want to be the one that gets burned by him, draft him, especially in best ball. Because I understand in regular redraft he's frustrating because he's a game plan dependent guy. You never know what games he'll be more involved in. But if you're in a best ball league, just draft him because then you just get credit whenever he does really well, which he'll probably have about 3 or 4 games where he gets 15 to 20 fantasy points because he's always involved near the goal line. And sometimes he's throwing passes, breaking long runs, catching passes. You never know what he can do. He can literally do it all 3 categories of passing, rushing, receiving that get fantasy points. So not saying to draft him high or anything, but take a chance on him late or else don't complain about him. Stop complaining about him because he's here to stay in the Saints offense. He's an important piece. He's not just some pest that's just not even that good. He's a valuable piece. He's an essential piece to this team. And so for those that aren't Saints fans that don't get that, it's like, bruh, watch the film. Like he's not just there for he is. He's there for a reason. So
yeah, I think a lot of the complaining stems from people who don't understand either him as a player or his situation, just because he's kind of an anomaly. Quarterback turned tight end that's actually useful. It's like what the Texans tried to do with Jeff Driscoll over the last few years, and that just didn't work. But Taysom Hill actually works, and it's just about playing the matchup. You need to know when to play him, when he'll get involved. But yeah, he's an anomaly, and obviously, as you said, if you don't want to get burned by him, just take him with a flyer because odds are those guys, as I said earlier in the show, will be on the waiver wire in the next few weeks.
Yeah, definitely, because I feel like he's somebody that is better than most of the waiver wire guys because he's a tight end, and even when he doesn't do that great, he usually gets a few touches here and there. While all these tight ends, it's like they'll have their weeks where they get targeted. But it's like if they don't score a touchdown, then that's it because they're not getting any rushing or passing stats.
And I take it one step further, Spencer. I'd say not only is he better than some of the guys on the waiver wire, he's more involved. Half the guys on the waiver wire are incredibly inconsistent, especially if we're talking tight ends. So, I mean, Taysom Hill's a guy who's going to be involved every week. And as you said, the tight end position's a crapshoot anyway. Just take Taysom Hill.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. All right. Well, that's going to do it. Appreciate everyone that tuned in here. Fantasy Roundup presented by Caesar Sportsbook. A lot of fun as always. We'll be back on Thursday. Jim Derry and I for Bayou Bets. Gabe and I are live every Tuesday for this show at 4 p.m. Appreciate everyone that tuned in. Everyone, my dad, Horace, Jerry, Matt King, Trav, Daniel Barry. Appreciate all y'all. And, of course, everyone else watching behind the scenes. I know y'all are watching, and if, y'all want to comment, feel free in future episodes. But that's going to put a ball on this one for Spencer the Guru and Gabe Henderson. This has been Fantasy Roundup, y'all. We'll be back. Catch y'all later.